Okay, so yeah, this is Salesforce. Hopefully it looks familiar to you. And all it is when you sit within your Sales Cloud, you can see this additional tab that says Prospector. And Prospector, as I mentioned, is all about generating the new data. So where we get our data from is from 125 different sources. Most of these are open web sources, but we've also partnered up with companies like Crunchbase, S&P Global, and Mergent Data to just sort of bolster the data points that we can provide. And what it allows you to do is to search for people that fit within your ICP and then instantly create leads, contacts, or accounts, depending on how you work within Salesforce. So we can run a quick search here, which will filter down our 400 million people and 22 million companies into a search that you're more specific with. Yeah. So what you could do is just type in sales and then type in the seniority of the person. So if somebody was called like a senior sales manager, this would still come up. So VP, manager, director, and CXO of sales. Based in, we can do regions, countries, cities, and states. Good. So what you can see there is anybody with sales in their title that is a manager, VP, CXO, or director. We have 142,000 of them based in California alone. And what we tend to do is not suggest that people put in 142,000 into their Salesforce in one go. So filter it a bit further down by stuff like company information. So what are the company sizes or the revenues of the company?
Oh, lovely.
If you had a specific list of target accounts that you wanted to find the sales managers in, then you can upload the domains of those accounts here, and that would help you to filter it down. And you can also filter by industry.
Awesome.
So should we just do computer software?
Great.
And then we've gone down to 8,000 in computer software alone. And then, as I mentioned, we can find some additional information on the company, so such as the technologies that they use. We have over 1,000 different technologies that people can use. Really popular ones are CRMs. So we work with a lot of ISVs that use us to identify Salesforce customers, as well as people that want to identify, like the SI partners that want to identify companies that aren't currently using Salesforce to help bring in white space. So we can find HubSpot, Pipedrive, Dynamics as well. And then, as I mentioned, we've got these events. So let's see how many Salesforce people we've got there. Sorry, first. So there's 6,000 people with sales in their title that are manager level and up in California in companies that use Salesforce. And then these event-based triggers, as I mentioned, because this data is all up to date and live, we're able to pick up on real life events that are happening. So when people join roles, there's a stat out there that says within the first 3 months of a decision maker joining their role, they'll allocate 70% of their total year's budget. So if you can get involved with them within the first 3 months, then you know that these are going to be the warmest leads that you're going to have, because they're about to overhaul their yearly budget.
Nice.
So
That's a great
normally years, the number will probably go down to the 10s or 20s. Maybe it'll be quite a low number, but that'll be the number where you could probably put in, just under 50. Like a very, very warm record, and put this into like a very targeted campaign, and you'll most likely a lot of calls maybe and a lot of personalized emails, and you'll get a lot more traction from that.
Wow. Okay. Wonderful.
So when you click process records, what happens, and this is a demo account, so I can't, but
okay, I was going to ask if it was a demo.
Yeah. So it will just save these records that are down here as leads, contacts, or accounts. It would ask you whether you wanted to save them as leads or contacts. And if you save them as contacts and the account doesn't exist, it will create the account as well. If the account already exists in your Salesforce, then we just plug the contact in to this existing account using Salesforce standard duping rules. So that's all about how we're helping people generate new, fresh, clean, and actionable data in Salesforce. There is another way that we can do that, actually, through LinkedIn. So we have a two-way integration between Salesforce and LinkedIn, which essentially helps people find whether a contact exists in Salesforce, and if not, it can help to export it and straight away. And it just helps those companies that are already using LinkedIn as a method to action. It's rather than them having to generate new processes, it's Cognism just really fitting in with their existing processes and making sure that Salesforce becomes a core part of that existing process. Before I click this, I've not set this up properly, so it's going to say warning 500 error. That's a me problem and not a Cognism problem. In the UK, for every single person that has LinkedIn, we have 1 in 5 compliant mobile numbers behind it. So 20% of everybody with a LinkedIn, we've got their compliant mobile number.
Wow.
So you can see with James here, our CEO, he's not an existing contact in our Salesforce. So we would just click export to Salesforce. If he was, it would come up with all of the existing activity, who owns the record, and then if there are any additional insights, then you can type them in as well.
Wonderful.
Okay, so back to Salesforce. I'll show you then, parking the sort of generating new data aside, this is how we can help people to clean up their existing data.
Nice.
So demo account again, so the numbers are not real. But the first thing that we do whenever somebody joins Cognism is just to get a good idea of the health of their general CRM. We would analyze their whole CRM. So this tends to take, depending on how much data they've got, but it tends to take maybe a day, and it will generate these two percentages on the left-hand side. So firstly, the match rate, and the match rate is, we have 400 million people in our data asset. How many, and you have 100,000 records in your CRM. How many of those 100,000 are a part of our 400 million? We know it's a large number to have 400 million, but it's not everybody in the world. So it's unlikely that we'll get 100% match rate from the first analysis. But that match rate just basically gives you an idea of what we've got there. Then you get the freshness rate. The freshness rate is the number, so out of that 82% that we have there, are there any discrepancies? Are there any like missing fields that we can help to add in? So for anybody that has a missing field, that would count against the percentage as well. And then when we've got an idea of the match rate and the freshness rate, it helps to give an idea of the general health of the CRM.
Yeah.
From then we can update and enrich the existing data in a few different ways. So the first way is called manual enrichment. So this can be done in 2 different ways, actually. So the first 2 different ways are manual enrichment. So it can either be done in bulk or individually. For the sake of this, we'll just do it individually, but in bulk, all it is that you create a list view, and you get an extra button similar to the one in this lead called Cognism Refresh. And you just click on Cognism Refresh, and what that does is ping our server to see whether this guy Anderson is still in the place that he's said to be, which he's not. So he's moved from Airbnb to Apple. And you can see when I click confirm that this is the old data that we used to have, and this is the new data, and you can see the additional data points that we've got, including office phone number, direct dial, and because for compliance purposes, he's probably got a mobile number that we can identify, but he's on the do not contact list through that. So we wouldn't provide the data to prevent people from breaching compliance for him.
Fair enough.
That would then, if you clicked apply Cognism data, update the record. And so that can be done, as I mentioned, either on an individual basis or on a in a bulk list view basis. The next way is called live refresh. Quite hard to demonstrate, but essentially it happens. It's triggered whenever either a contact or lead is edited, or if a new one is created. So whenever if you went to an event or had a webinar and you've asked for first name, last name, company name, and then you uploaded that list in, all of those people that you've created would go through this live refresh element, and it would just provide all of the Cognism data that we would have on those individuals that have been added on through the list.
Nice.
Final one, which came into effect as of, I believe, Monday, is called scheduled refresh. Again, difficult to demo, but all it is that you can create lead list views and say, I want this lead list view with this characteristic, or with this, like these people in this industry, however you've created your lead list view, to go through a Cognism refresh every 3 months, every month, every year, depending on how your cycles work.
Okay, wonderful.
So that means, and that's all happening in the background without people actually having to do too much themselves.